It feels strange writing to you again after 7 years of silence. For the longest time, I thought my first letter would be the one and only. I said what I needed to say and figured that was the end of it. But here I am again, typing away in the quiet of my kitchen, because the things around here never really stop. Sure, they quiet down sometimes, but if anybody's ever listened to one of these stories, you know how things go. In the years since my email, you've heard from others in my town. My friends Eric and Kate told you their side of things, and even one man who's lived here forever finally spoke up. We'll keep his name private, as requested. But reading those letters made me feel a little less crazy, I'll admit that. I mean, at least I wasn't the only one saying out loud what we all whisper in private. Yes, we still see those things. The encounters come and go, wax and wane depending on the season. But you know as well as I do what time of year's coming. Dogman September. That's when the quiet really ends. That's when the fear creeps back in full force. My family has changed a lot in 7 years. Ella is nearly 10 now, old enough to understand the dangers, old enough to know there are things in the woods that must be respected. She knows the rules, the same ones we all live by. Never go into the forest alone. After dark, don't go in at all. Keep your pets inside once the sun goes down. And never shoot one of them. It only makes them angry. She doesn't just hear them as bedtime warnings. She understands their survival. And during the time we've been away from your channel, James and I were blessed with another daughter, Lucy, who just turned 2. She's our happy little toddler. We named her after James's grandmother, and she has no idea yet what kind of place she was born into. I pray every day she won't have to grow up fearing those things that roam around here like Ella does. We're still in the same house, still part of the same community. Same balance, same unease. Life goes on though. School drop-offs, neighbors waving across fences, James working steady hours, and me teaching now. On the surface, it looks ordinary, but the Dogman presence is never far away. 7 years is a long time, and a lot has happened in that span. Some of these encounters were minor, just little disturbances that barely made the pages of the journal that I keep hidden away. Others not so minor. And then just recently, something that shook me enough to sit back down and write to you again. That's why I'm here now, sending this email full of all the weird and terrifying crap we live with in this town. I'll never show my journal to anyone, only James has read a piece of it, maybe a couple of really close friends I trust, but tonight, I'm opening the pages back up for you. Looking back, I realize how much I crammed into that first letter. Even now, I can picture myself hunched over the keyboard, shaking as I tried to put it all down. I wrote about the shed break-in, that awful night when James and I could hear something rummaging through our things, barking in a way that was almost too human to be a dog and too savage to be anything else. I remember the smell, most of all. That sour, bloody musk that hung in the air until morning, and made the shed stink for days. We found the damage the next day, the claw marks, the broken shovel handle, the boxes scattered like a tornado had blown through it. That was the first time I knew without a doubt we weren't dealing with stories anymore. Something real had been in our backyard. Then came the howls. I'll never forget those. They cut right through the walls, rattled the glass in the windows, rattled my soul, carried on for what felt like hours. I told you back then it reminded me of the movie American Werewolf in London. That same long, hollow, predatory sound, but deeper, angrier. More like a lion's roar had been mixed in with it. And then there were our poor pets. Arrow, the border collie, gone without a trace in the middle of the day. Flash, our pit mix, vanished just as suddenly. Our neighbors lost their animals too. Cats, dogs, even a horse with claw marks carved into its hide. Around here, when a pet disappears, you don't think lost, you think taken. People in town don't even argue about it anymore. It's just a grim fact of life. But the hunter's disappearance was the worst of all. Remember, he wasn't from town, which made it easier for the officials to dismiss. But the way that search was handled told the rest of us something was off. Too many rangers, too many state police, too much urgency for just a man lost in the woods. Weeks later, they said they found his body, but wouldn't release a cause of death. That's not the way it usually goes. Everyone here knew what had really happened. We didn't need them to tell us. I also told you about the time I finally saw one with my own eyes, from my bedroom window. Even though it was only a few seconds, even though it was running away from me, the size of it burned itself into my memory. tall at the shoulder even on four legs, with a long gray coat and ears that stood straight up. I felt like a child again, sitting there frozen and terrified, but there was no mistaking it. I'd seen the same creature that had been haunting our lives for years. Since that letter, Eric and Kate's words only confirmed what I already knew. Their stories about midnight prowlers outside their home, one carrying a raccoon in its hands, the window peering, the rooftop pacing, it all mirrored the same patterns we'd lived through. And Nancy, my friend who first broke through my disbelief, she was right from the start. I owe her for opening my eyes before it was too late. And then, of course, there was the third man who messaged you, who doesn't want his name mentioned, admitting that government types showed up during the hunter search, the way he described the road ambush tactics that these things do, one distracting the car, another ready to strike. When I first heard that, I thought it sounded like something out of a horror movie, but I believe it wholeheartedly. After what I've seen and heard since, there's no part of me that doubts it. Since then, the list has only grown, as you can imagine. Some nights it's quiet, some nights we pretend it's quiet, some nights that's impossible. But the truth is, they're still out there. They leave, but they're never really gone for good, and there's nothing that we could do about that. The years between my first letter and now have been a strange kind of limbo. We'll go through stretches where nothing happens. No howls, no claw marks, no shadows darting across the road. And for a while, life seems almost normal. These periods of silence always give us false hope, like maybe the Dogmen have finally moved on. But this town, it's never truly left alone. September always proves us wrong. Every fall, like clockwork, the season starts up again. Dogman September, if you've forgotten what we call it. That's when the hope ends and the rules matter most. A lot of people in town don't even bother with pets anymore. It's too heartbreaking, too predictable. You can put up the signs, hand out the flyers, beg folks to keep an eye out for your missing cat or dog, but deep down, everyone knows they won't come back. I used to think I'd never live in a house without a dog. Now I know better. Around here, pets are like bait. Bait that you didn't mean to set out. We still keep bars on the windows and the alarms on the house. We have babies to protect. They give me some peace of mind, but the truth is, I don't think locks or alarms can stop them. They stay out because they choose to, because they're smart enough not to enter a home. They know where we are. They've always known. But they always know when to leave and when to come back, it feels like. Over the years, though, I've noticed some changes. They were subtle at first, but enough that I can't ignore them anymore. There's more daylight activity now. These things used to keep cover of night, but people have spotted them in the afternoons, even in the early mornings. They're getting bolder, or careless, or both. The sightings are closer to town, too. Not just around the edges of town, or where they can come in without being seen. One was spotted by the gas station light, another near the church lot. Places that used to feel safe don't really feel safe anymore sometimes. And the variety seems to be growing too, which might be the most disturbing fact of all. When I first moved here, most of the stories sounded the same. Dark brown or gray, tall and muscular. But now people talk about different colors sometimes too. Tan, jet black, molded like a coyote. Some huge, towering like monsters. Others smaller, leaner, almost young. To me, it feels like evidence of a breeding population. They don't seem to be passing through. They're living here, multiplying. This isn't a seasonal haunting. It's an infestation. The biggest thing about living here is you learn to measure your peace in hours, not years. Because even when nothing's happening, the silence is never permanent, and it always breaks. Some nights it'll start with the smell. That same foul, dirty odor I wrote about before. Like wet fur, rot, old blood, all of it mixed together. It'll drift into the house even when the windows are shut tight. What unnerves me is when it happens on nights with no wind. Still air, nothing moving, yet somehow that stink finds its way in. It makes you realize how close these things can actually get without you ever even hearing them. There's no wind carrying the smell. They're too close to your home. You can't mistake it. The worst is when I smell it in the girls' room. I'll creep in there, check their windows, check the bars, make sure they're breathing peacefully. I never see anything outside, but I know they're out there. You don't get that smell unless one of them is really close. Other times it's the porch. We'll hear heavy steps on the boards outside, back and forth like something pacing. Sometimes, if you listen closely, it even sounds like two sets of steps. One heavy, one lighter, like more than one of them is walking in slow circles. Maybe it's the older ones teaching the younger ones how to act. The wood creaks under the weight, loud enough to make you stop, listen, even track where they're going. The scariest part is when the pacing stops and the doorknobs rattle. That hasn't happened to me, but Eric and Kate have experienced that multiple times. They don't twist fast, not trying to break in, just a slow jiggle, maybe a reminder that they could come inside if they wanted. Every time one of these little incidences happen, I scoop Lucy up and carry her into our room, and Ella follows without a word. She knows when Mom isn't faking calm anymore. There's those sounds still too. Not the screams like in those movies. Those come sometimes too. Sometimes I wish I could decode what they're trying to say, what the screams mean, why they do it. Sometimes you hear these deep barking noises, but it's not any kind of dog that I've ever heard. You hear howls sometimes, stretched long but lower and heavier like it's rising from something too big to exist. One night, we heard what I can only describe as a conversation between two of them. The first call was sharp, loud, echoing through the woods. Then after a pause, another answered, closer. Ella grabbed my hand and whispered, "They're talking." And you know what? I think she was right. We've found new claw marks, too. Not just in trees this time. A couple of months ago, James went out to the shed in the morning and called me out there. On the door, there were these deep gouges like they'd been carved into the wood. 4 long rakes dug so deep the wood splintered out. The marks started nearly 8 feet up, far higher than James could even reach. Even if he jumped, he just happened to see them by circumstance. He got a ladder and measured it, said it had to be one of them, standing tall, reaching out. The idea of this thing by our shed, carving those lines while we slept, makes me sick. It just reminds me of the first time that I encountered one of them. It wasn't breaking in. I think it was marking its territory like a bear does. It's the times where you don't see them that are truly creepy, though. The times where you know they're there, but you don't get a glimpse and wonder how long they'd been there. More than once, we've been woken by the sound of something sprinting past the yard at 2 in the morning and banging into stuff. You hear the pounding feet, rustling grass, the force of something enormous rushing by and knocking over a trash can. By the time you get to the window, the yard's empty. Not even a shadow left behind. But the air feels heavy, electric, like the way the world goes still before a thunderstorm. Sometimes the girls even wake up when it happens. Ella presses her face into my side and whispers, "It ran by again." And we lie there, listening, waiting for it to circle back, comforting our girl when she's scared. Luckily, Lucy is still perfectly oblivious to what's going on. But it's only a matter of time until she realizes that there are things out there that cause nightmares too. But all those are the little things. The background noise of life here. They don't make headlines. Sometimes they don't even make it into my journal unless I just jot down a quick little note. But they always remind us that we're not alone, and we probably never will be. So here we are, emailing like old friends again. Thank you for being part of this. Here are the things we've experienced since, over the last 7 years. I know there's a lot in this email, but I want to stress to everybody listening, these don't happen every night. These are encounters that we've collected over the course of 7 years. Most of my encounters will be in order, but the others that I've heard from other people are just sprinkled in there. I've told you before that Nancy was the first one who really made me open my eyes to the truth about this place. She's always been braver than me in some ways, always willing to talk about what other people whisper about. She moved away for a while, thinking she could leave the Dogman problem behind. But her parents are still here, and she comes back to visit often. Recently, within the last year, she's moved back with her parents to take care of them. A few years back, she was headed home from their place, driving one of the old country back roads. She said it was just around dusk, the kind of dusk where the sky is still a little blue, but the trees are already pitch black. The kind of time that you really don't feel comfortable driving if you've seen these things before. She saw movement in the ditch ahead and figured it was a deer about to bound across. She slowed down, ready for it to jump, because those things happen all the time around here. But what came up out of the ditch wasn't a deer. She said it rose straight up on 2 legs. Tall, broad-shouldered, covered in light fur that her headlights caught in flashes of brown and tan. Its head snapped towards her, ears pricked up, yellowish eyes reflecting in the lights. Your typical encounter. She floored the gas pedal and tried to get out of there and away from that thing, but then it started running alongside her car like it was running a race with her. She swore to me it was like this thing wasn't even trying. It kept up without breaking a sweat. Long, loping strides, arms pumping like a man. She told me the worst part wasn't the speed or the size, but the look that it gave her. She said she felt like this thing was studying her, like a predator trying to decide if the chase was worth the energy. She couldn't look away from those eyes until just as quickly it veered back into the trees and vanished. She sped up and left it behind her. Now Nancy refuses to drive that road. Not in the evening, not at night, not even early morning when the fog is thick. She takes the long way every single time. When she told me the story, she said words that I can't get out of my head. Shelly, it wasn't curious, it was calculating. Her visits after that became less frequent. I think that time it really did a number on her. But like I said, her parents are aging and getting sick, so now her and her family have moved back here. I can't imagine feeling the freedom of leaving this place only to get thrust right back into it. I feel bad for her sometimes. Then came a story from just down the street. This one rattled me to my core because it involved a child. A little boy about the same age as Ella. It was late one night when his parents heard him screaming bloody murder. They ran upstairs, thinking he had a nightmare, but he was white as a sheet, shaking so hard he could barely talk. Eventually, through hiccups and sobs, he told them there was a monster crouched outside of his window. But here's the thing. His room is on the second floor. That window opens out onto the roofline. The boy said that he was crouched down like a catcher in baseball, peering in at him with its teeth bared. It was smiling, he insisted, but his dad tried to correct him, saying he probably meant snarling, but the boy shook his head violently. He was adamant. No, Daddy, it was smiling at me. Ella was 7 years old at the time, so the boy was probably around the same age. When he bolted from his room, he swore the thing turned and fled too, disappearing into the night. His father, not wanting to scare him further, grabbed a flashlight and his rifle. I know, bad idea. And went outside. He didn't see anything, but he did admit later that the world outside felt wrong. No bugs or animals making noise, just silence. But he knew for sure it had been one of those things that was there in the quiet, and that it was responsible for that silence too. But he also said he felt that static charge feeling that they bring with them. I wonder why that is. Is it some kind of proof that they're supernatural creatures or not from around here? Maybe one day we'll figure that out. But anyway, he told us about it, and he got real upset. I didn't see what my boy saw, he said. But I believe him, because even though I didn't see it, I felt it. I have another friend from church that raises chickens, mostly for eggs, but also because she just loves them. She calls them her ladies. One morning, she came outside to find the entire coop destroyed. Why she even had that thing out there is beyond me. But what we saw was a wooden door that had been ripped clean off of the hinges. Not chewed, not pried with tools, ripped away in splinters. The latch was twisted, like someone had grabbed it with a massive hand and snapped it with all of their might. Inside the coop, it was a disaster. The ladies were everywhere, feathers floating in the breeze. Some of the hens were missing entirely, carried off into the woods, while others had been torn apart right there in the dirt. The ones that did make it through the ordeal were high up, as high as they could go, and scared out of their minds. She told me her heart broke, not just from losing the birds, but from knowing exactly what had done it. She'd heard them screaming off in the distance the night before it happened. She said she should have known better and taken better precautions. She got rid of the rest of the chickens after that, not wanting any more of them to get hurt. But she said the way that the doors ripped off, only something with hands could have done that. We all know what those things are capable of because of the way their front paws are made. They can function as hands, no problem. That night, she didn't sleep, and now she locks her house up like a fortress every evening. She said, Shelly, they didn't come for eggs, they came for meat. And then there's one that unsettled me badly, because it wasn't out on the edge of town or buried deep in the woods. It happened right here, near the heart of the town. A good friend of James's was closing up the gas station that he works at. It was after midnight. He said the air was still and quiet as he locked the door, so he was already nervous. Then he caught sight of movement just beyond the edge of the floodlights. At first, he was praying it was a stray dog because of how close to the middle of town this thing was, but then it stood up. He described the way it shifted from 4 legs to 2, as casual as a man stretching his back. It darted back and forth in the shadows, staying just far enough out of the light that he couldn't make out all of the details, but close enough to make him realize it was like it was circling, or watching, or paying a lot of attention to him. He panicked and jumped into his car because he didn't want to be outside with one, and who can blame him, right? When he turned the headlights on, he swore he saw it bolt into the trees like it was spooked by the light. He tried to follow, because he's crazy, but it was gone by the time he reached the edge of the lot. Now this gas station sits just off of Main Street. It's not farmland or back roads. That's the center of town, where families buy groceries and kids ride their bikes. If they're sniffing around businesses now, skulking around every place that we think is safe, I'm afraid things are changing. The way he described this one, it sounded smaller, so the only thing I can figure about this is, since it was only 5 to 5.5 feet tall, it's really small in comparison to the other ones that we've seen around here. Maybe it was a juvenile or something along those lines. Maybe it wandered there by mistake. And of course you already know Eric and Kate. They've seen plenty, probably more than most people around here because they're further out into the woods. A few years back, they had one of their worst nights yet. Kate told me they were sitting in their living room one fall evening, just watching TV with the windows cracked open because it wasn't too cold yet. Out of nowhere, they heard heavy footsteps on the porch. Slow, measured, obviously too heavy to be a person. The usual stuff. Eric muted the TV and grabbed his flashlight. Kate begged him not to go out, so he just aimed the beam through the window instead. What they saw made both of their stomachs drop. The creature was standing right there on the porch, big, massive shoulders nearly brushing the roof line. It wasn't sniffing or pacing this time, though. It was standing still, head cocked toward the window, like it was watching them. When the light hit its face, its lips curled back in what Eric swore looked like a grin. Not a snarl, a deliberate grin. Then instead of fleeing like most wild things, it reached for the door handle, which was in arm's distance of the window. Rattled it once, twice, slowly, like it was testing the lock. They saw the creature look down, towards the knob, like it was almost taunting them. Kate said her whole body went cold. Eric raised his gun, even though he knew it probably wouldn't do much. Before he could pull the trigger, the thing stepped back, growled low and deep, slammed a hand on the wall hard enough to make a picture fall to the ground, and then bounded off the porch in a single step. The next morning, they found the wood around the door frame splintered, where the Dogman had struck the wall. The thing that makes all of us nervous is we don't know how long it was there watching them before they saw it, and it was the biggest one they've seen. Honestly, I hate that they're so secluded from the rest of the town. These guys are my friends, but they're not the type to give in to fear either. They're both so brave. Since then, though, they have taken more precautions. More floodlights, sensors, steel on the doors, just for the locks. Kate admitted to me once, "Shelly, I know it wasn't the locks that kept it out. It just decided not to." Kate told me there was one night last fall when she had to stay late at school finishing up grading some papers after an event. By the time she left, it was nearly 9:30 and the back roads were empty. She was halfway home when her floodlight swept across the ditch and caught something crouched low, like it had been waiting there for somebody to pass by. She swore it just stood there on the shoulder of the road, towering, eyes glowing gold in the beams. It didn't run, or even flinch, it just watched her as she drove past. And Eric had his own run-in the summer before that. He still won't hike that trail anymore. He'd gone out early one morning, just after sunrise, to clear his head before the school year started. It was a trail that led into town and connected their house with the forest behind it. About a mile through his hike, the woods went quiet. He stopped, then caught sight of something moving through the trees, parallel to his path. He said at first it looked like a huge dog running alongside of him, but he knew better. For nearly 2 minutes it shadowed him through the trees, never rushing or closing the distance, just keeping pace. When he finally turned back, walking fast but not running, every few steps he'd glance into the tree line. He said it stayed with him until it broke out onto the gravel road, and then that thing melted away, like it had been waiting for him to leave or something. When he got back home, Kate said his shirt was soaked through, even though the morning was cold. He told her flat out, "The trail's theirs now." It leads directly to their house. Eric has used it without any problems for years, especially during the day. There's another man, Mr. Reynolds, who works one of the bigger farms just past town. His story got around quick because this thing was just so bold. He was out late checking on his cattle after hearing the dogs going nuts. When he swung the barn lights forward, he caught sight of one of them, huge, jet black, crouched in the tall grass. It wasn't attacking the cattle, it was watching them like a lion stalking its prey. When the light hit it, it stood up. He said it was 8, maybe even 9 feet tall, eyes glowing like coals. Instead of running, it took a few slow steps forward into the light, which they don't normally do. These things try to stay out of the light, but this thing was so bold that he thought it was going to come after him. He told us it felt like a warning, like it was showing him who really owned the land. Then, just as calm as could be, it turned, dropped to all fours, and loped back into the dark. The next morning, he found part of a fawn next to the barn where he'd been standing. Just part of it. But the thing is, it wasn't the kill site. He's positive that one of the dogmen brought it there and left it for him to find. He said it felt like this thing's calling card was left behind. Since then, he's hired a couple of guys to help as cattle hands, so they can all go out there at night to check on the cattle. Nobody's alone after that. They take their shotguns and rifles, even knowing that if they do come upon one of these things and fired, it might very well just piss it off. But when people are grouped together, these things seem to stay away most of the time. One story might be dismissed. 2 stories might be a coincidence, but pile them together, and every year it feels like they creep further out of the woods and into our lives. They pace cars, they crouch on roofs, they tear apart coops. They circle businesses under floodlights now. And they do it all with that same eerie confidence, that sense that they decide when to come and when to go. Most nights, we can pretend it's quiet. Some nights we can pretend it's safe. But then there's nights like these that happen, and pretending isn't an option anymore. As far as my own encounters go, I've had a few over the years since we talked last. The first one that really rattled me came about 2 summers ago. Lucy was just a baby then, still waking up some nights. I'd gotten into the habit of checking her window before bed, same as I do with Ella, making sure the curtains were drawn tight so nothing could look in, and the little nightlight glowed softly against the wall. One night, I was putting laundry away. I swore I saw movement outside of her curtains. Just a flicker of movement, like something had moved past quickly from the outside. I immediately went into overdrive. I've lost the luxury of thinking things like, it was my imagination, or maybe it was just a trick of light. I know it's out there. Hell, right out there sometimes, and I'm not fooling around when it comes to my kids. I didn't dare open the curtains. I stood in that room over her crib, holding my breath until finally convincing myself that it was okay to move again. Lucy slept through it without a fuss, and I managed to sleep too, but with both my girls in bed with us. James usually stays up those nights, just to keep an eye on us. The next morning, when he left for work, he called me outside. Beneath Lucy's window, in the soft dirt where the sprinklers sometimes leave the ground damp, were prints. Large, muddy, canine prints. Clear as day, right beneath the baby's room. I don't know if that thing had climbed up on the roof and was walking around, or if somehow the shadow from the downstairs area made it up to the top, but I'm glad that I saw it, because I knew that I could keep my girls safe that night. I just remember clutching the window ledge, feeling my hands go numb. It wasn't just noise on the porch or a shadow in the tree line this time. It was standing outside of my daughter's window for all I knew, close enough to touch the glass, quiet enough to get up on the roof and look into a second-story window without us even knowing. We scrubbed the dirt clean, but I never forgot, and I don't think I ever will. James had his own brush with one of those about 2 years before Ella was born, and to this day he doesn't like to fish anymore. He'd gone out to the river one morning with a friend, hoping to bring back a few bass for dinner. He said the air was calm, just the sound of the current and the occasional splash of fish. He was just about to pack up when he felt eyes on him, that unmistakable prickle on the back of his neck. Honestly, I think you learn to listen to those senses, and your body's more attuned to those things when you live like we do. When he and his friend looked across the water, there it was, upright, tall, broad as an oak tree, standing still at the opposite bank. In its hands, it was holding something. The guys couldn't tell if it was a rabbit or a raccoon or something else, but James swore it was dangling limply, gripped like a man would carry a bag. It just stared at them across the river. James told me they were frozen for what felt like minutes, heart hammering, lines still dangling in the water. And then finally, without a sound, James reeled in. His buddy did too. They packed their gear and walked back up to the bank. James didn't run, told his friend not to, even though both of them wanted to. He said he didn't look back once until he reached the truck, and by then the thing was gone. When he told me about it later that day, his voice was low and shaky, and to this day, I think about that every time he goes out with his friends to fish. I know he does too. He doesn't enjoy fishing anymore. It's not a hobby, but he does it because his friends like to, and like I said, in groups, these things usually tend to stay away, and if they make themselves known, it's from a distance. And then once, Ella even swore that she saw the Dogman. She's old enough now to notice things too, and that terrifies me in a whole new way. Last September, right at the start of school, a group of kids swore they saw one watching them. It happened at pickup time. Parents were pulling up, kids were running and shouting, the usual end of the day chaos. But Ella and 3 of her classmates froze by the jungle gym. They were staring past the fence line, towards a stand of trees that borders the back of the schoolyard. Later, Ella told me she saw a shape, tall, wolf-like, just far enough into the shadows that the teachers didn't notice. She said it stood there, half hidden, watching, not moving. The kids all swore they saw the same thing, and ran and told the teacher. The teachers that were outside all kept an eye on the trees, but didn't see anything once the kids pointed out where it had been. This was the middle of the day. When the parents all heard that night, the whispers started. A couple of them admitted they'd felt uneasy that afternoon during pickup too, like something was off. Ella doesn't scare easily. She's growing up in this town after all. But when she told me, I could see the fear on her little face, and she said, "Mom, it was looking right at us." So I reinforced the rules again. Don't go near the woods. Don't wander off alone. Don't make eye contact if you can't help it. But inside, my blood ran cold, because if they're creeping near schools in broad daylight, what's left that's safe? The last one that happened last year before things tapered off wasn't at my house, thank God. But it was close enough for us to actually hear what happened. It was a neighbor's barn, about a quarter mile down the road. He kept goats, 8 of them, and had reinforced his doors after hearing stories about the chicken coops getting raided. He said he wasn't going to lose his herd to some wolf man, and those goats were good for a long time. But then it happened. James and I woke up to the sound. This high-pitched bleating, panicked, carrying through the darkness. Then the sound of those things yipping and barking. We both laid in bed paralyzed, just listening. I wanted to run, to call the sheriff, to do something, but my body wouldn't move. It was the sound of slaughter, and I couldn't make myself step outside. Neither could James. Neither could anyone around. The next morning, word spread fast, though. The barn door was torn off, hinges bent back like foil. Inside, more carnage. Blood, straw trampled, goats gone or ripped apart. This time, unlike the chickens, not one of the animals survived. There had to be more than one of them that came that night. Hell, it sounded like a small pack of them if you ask me. That night, nobody on our road slept, because even if the goats weren't ours, the sound had carried straight through into our homes. We all knew what it meant. They could do it anywhere, to anyone, whenever they pleased. And then, just this past spring, something happened that's only been whispered about until now. 2 dogmen were actually seen together. Not just by one person either, but by 2 different households within half an hour of each other in the same spot. The first sighting came from a man driving home with his son. They swore they saw 2 of them right in the middle of the asphalt, but they took off in different directions when the car got closer. Half an hour later, a man driving the same stretch spotted them too, crouched over a carcass of a deer that had been hit the day before. He didn't see them upright, but he saw their heads jerk up as the car passed by. 2 separate sightings, same night, same spot. And now, confirmation. There is more than one of them out there. That night, those thoughts weren't a rumor anymore, it was fact. There's at least a pair of them. And this year, over the course of April to August, 3 different people reported something else new. Smaller dogmen darting around the outskirts of town. I mean, not small by any normal standard, but shorter, leaner, and with a clumsier way of moving than the other ones. One of them was seen dashing between sheds near an old grain mill. Another was caught darting across the soccer field at dusk. And the third time, one was spotted skulking near the trash bins behind the diner. Juveniles. The idea chilled me. Because if they're young ones, that means they're not just strays drifting through our forest. They're breeding. They're raising their young among us, letting them grow up on the edges of our streets. It's not just a population passing through. It's a population here. And that means what we see now is another generation of these things, and honestly, I'm not sure I can handle that. But the one that rattled the town most happened just a few months ago in July. It was at the park. And that's why I'm emailing you now. Because these things are happening during the day. It was a Sunday afternoon, just normal, warm and sunny, the kind of day where families spread out in blankets, kids chase each other by the swings, someone always brings a guitar. I was there too. Me, James, Ella, Lucy, all of us. Along with half of the town, it seemed. It felt safe in the daylight, surrounded by neighbors, laughter, food. But then these noises started. Low at first, maybe a rustling in the trees, too steady to be squirrels. That's what some people noticed first. Then a snap, like a branch breaking deliberately, like someone just held it up high and snapped it for attention. And then more of that damn barking. Up close like that, I got a sense for how deep it is. I'd never heard it while I was outside and close like that, but it was distinctly the same as the barks we hear at night. Nobody saw anything, not really, just movement between the trees, something shifting just out of sight, but it was enough. One by one, people started folding up their blankets, corralling kids, tossing paper plates into trash bags. We all just left because we were thinking the same thing. No attack came. No monster burst into the clearing. But honestly, it didn't need to. The damage was already done. The fact that whatever it was came that close in the middle of the day with dozens of us right there, that was enough to shake us. Later that night, James told me, I think they're testing us, seeing how close they can get. I think he's right. Those are just the big encounters, the ones that stuck in my gut that I can't let go of. There's smaller ones too. Shadows, tracks, that low growl echoing through the trees. But the window, the river, the schoolyard, the barn, those moments remind me this isn't just a backdrop to our lives. It's a threat. It's intent. Some people around here, they're not afraid of these creatures. They think it's just a normal part of life. They think that maybe there aren't any attacks on humans because they're curious about us, but not hostile. Honestly, I don't know what I believe. I know other than that hunter, nobody's ever been hurt. But we've all been terrified. Our animals have been taken, but then again, if you live out in a mountainous region, other predators can take your animals too. So are these things just predators that we haven't discovered yet? Or are they something from another world? Or are they just not bold enough to attack us yet? I don't know. But I think one day, maybe we'll learn the truth. I just hope it's leaning towards the curious and not hostile portion of that. It was literally 4 days after the park incident that Kate and Eric came by to check in, and I could tell by their faces before they even said anything that whatever they'd experienced out there hadn't let them sleep much. Kate told me it happened 2 nights after the picnic. She and Eric were sitting out on their porch trying to enjoy the cooler air when everything in the woods went dead quiet. No crickets, no owls, nothing. And then it started. Not one yip, not even two. She swears it sounded like half a dozen of them at once. Deep barks weaving under sharp yips, longer whines breaking into frantic, almost excited barks. She said it didn't sound like a warning, or even like animals calling to each other. It sounded like a frenzy. Like they'd brought something down and were chattering in excitement about the meal that they were about to have. Eric's hunted coyotes before, and he flat out told me it sounded just like excited coyotes, but it was those things. It was too heavy and too deep to be anything else. The way he described it made my skin crawl. But thankfully, what they were hearing wasn't that close. It sounded further off into the forest, but still loud enough for them to hear. Since then, they've both seen eyes out on their property line, though. Not just one pair at times, sometimes two, sometimes maybe even more than that. Always just far enough away that you can't make out shapes, but close enough that you can know you're being watched. Those eyes shine back at you like marbles in a flashlight beam. Kate tells me these things, and my stomach always sinks for her, because it feels like there's more of them this year, and there's more of them around her area, and those thoughts are getting harder to dismiss. I think over the years, enough things have happened to convince some families to find somewhere else to live. I know we've talked about it several times over the last 2 years. We're getting to the point financially, too, where it might be a possibility. We might be able to pull it off. I feel bad for wanting to leave. I know some of my friends that I consider family at this point, like Eric and Kate, would never pack up and run. But I need to make sure these girls are raised where they can be safe and enjoy life. At last count, 6 families have moved in 3 years. Some of those houses have just sat there, wearing out from nobody taking care of them. Some of the guys from around town take care of the lawns and stuff, but I can't help but feel if things keep going this way, this place is going to end up being a ghost town. And when people from outside of the area ask why, they're in for a rude awakening. So here we are, 7 years later, nothing has changed. Maybe it's only gotten worse. I'm older, my kids are older, but the feeling in my gut is the same. It's never gone. I still check the windows before I go to bed. Still walk fast to the car when the sun goes down. Still wait for the sound of claws scratching somewhere that shouldn't be. And when they do, we keep quiet. Sometimes I wonder if my girls will have to grow up like this for their entire lives. Always looking over their shoulders, always hearing the woods. Ella's old enough to know the rules, old enough to understand that there are things out there bigger than us, older than us, stronger than us. And sweet little Lucy, she'll have to grow up with these rules too if we don't get out, whether we like that or not. I'm grateful that my family is safe. I can say that. These creatures have not ever come in and tried to harm us. I'm grateful every morning I wake up to see my kids at the table and my husband sitting across from them playing with them. But I can't help but wonder if we're being tested by them. If surviving in this place isn't just luck, but some cruel game these things play with us. I would like to hope that they live in harmony with us because they're intelligent enough to know that our lives are important. That if we give them respect, they give it back. So maybe all of us really are living in harmony with these things because they're intelligent enough to agree. But we know this is the time of the year when activity peaks, when the nights are longer and the air is colder. We don't always see them. Just because it's September doesn't mean they come and just invade the town. It's just when we happen to see them more often. We know they're around. We know they come down from the mountains, hunting in the forest, tormenting us, always near, whether we admit it or not. I wish I could say you probably won't hear from me again, but let's be real about that. As long as we're here, there will be stories. Until then, thanks again. Thanks for letting me chat your ear off. Thanks for telling people what I can't bring myself to say out loud. Like you said once, things really do go bump in the night. But now I guess, they bump in the day too. Sincerely, Shelly.